This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let's start now. So just a quick recap of what we have done till now and what we have covered in our last session. So we created this company code XYIN, okay, and we understood what is a company code, what is a chart of account, what is a fiscal year variant, what is a field status variant, posting period variant. So we assigned all the organizational objects to our company code, right? We understood what is variant principle. We understood what are the different steps in the variant principle. And then after configuring all the enterprise structure setup, we try to post some of the documents also. So general ledger accounting point of view, we already posted some documents, we reversed some documents, we know how to change a document which is already posted. And in our last session, we started off with accounts payables, within which we discussed what is the difference between ECC and S4HANA in terms of creation of the master data. Okay, the master data that we have seen was vendor and customer. So we understood that in ECC, the way in which the customer and vendor master data is created is not same in SAP S4HANA. In S4HANA, in order to create a customer and vendor, we have to create a business partner. Okay, and we also understood how to create a business partner. We also created few business partners which we can use today in order to process with our AP transactions. Right? Any questions before we start the new topic today? How many of you were able to create the business partners? Have you tried already? Creation of vendor or customer?
Yes, we did.
So any issues, any errors are you facing, or we can go ahead with the other topic? Okay, if not, let me start with, so what I'll do is I will quickly show you what we discussed in terms of the business partner. So the transaction code is BP. When you go to transaction BP, we discussed there are three different options available. You can create a person, organization, or a group. So I told you in order to create a customer and vendor, we normally use this organization tab. Okay, so we'll click on the organization tab. It will ask you for the BP grouping. We already created some BP groupings in our last session. So in order to, yeah, you can see DOM and FOR. These are the, I think, the BP groupings that we have created. So in our example, we are dividing our customers and vendors into domestic and foreign. Okay, when you work in the real-time project, you may find that the customer wants to divide their customers and vendors into different segregations. So those are the groupings that you need to create. Okay, so let's assume I want to create a domestic vendor, right? So if I want to create a vendor, I have to select which role. For vendor master data, which role I should select? Which is the BP role for vendor?
FLVN01.
FLVN00 for financial accounting and FLVN01 for purchasing. So normally,
Yes, sorry.
yeah, the MM team, when they create the vendor, they will create under FLVN01. But if a financial accountant wants to create a vendor for financial postings, we need FLVN00. Okay, you will get this message. Just click on create, provide whatever title you want, name, whatever name you want to provide. So let's say this is my test vendor for our company, which is XYIN, right? And then there are few mandatory fields like search term. Okay, then there are some mandatory fields like language, even the address information, some of the fields you should enter, which is at least the country. So what I'll do is I'll enter the postal code. I will enter the city and country. Okay, other information is optional. If you want to enter, you can enter, otherwise you can keep it blank. Okay, you can see we are getting this message, grouping domestic has external number, enter the number. What does it mean? It means that there are two type of number ranges, internal number range, external number range. Internal number range means system will automatically determine the next available number. If it is external number range, then you have to provide this number manually. Okay, and that number must be in the range. So we don't know what is the range currently. If I enter some dummy number, I will get a message that the number should be between 1 to 299. This is the number which is assigned to this BP grouping. Okay, so for example, if I provide number 200, which is in the range, you can see system is now allowing me to go ahead. And when you select this BP role FLVN00, you will be able to see this company code button, because vendor in financial accounting is created at the company code level. If I select FLVN01, then I'll be able to see purchasing tab. Okay, if I click on company code, system will ask me for which company code I want to create this vendor. So when company code is XYIN, okay, and then there are some mandatory fields like reconciliation account. So if you want this reconciliation account to be entered, just do F4 and system will give the list of all the reconciliation accounts, all the GL accounts with the reconciliation indicator as vendor. I shown you last time. So if I go to transaction FS00 and show you this particular GL account, this in the control data, you will be able to see this is a reconciliation account for account type vendors. So if you are creating 10 such GLs where this indicator is vendor, when you do F4, system will show you all those 10 GL accounts here, and you need to select the proper one. Okay, once this is done, you can click on save. System will generate the vendor number and the BP number. So you can see business partner number 200 has been created, and vendor number is this one. This is a vendor number that we have created just now. Okay, so this is how the vendors and customers are created in SAP S/4HANA using the BP concept, which is mandatory. Without creating the BP, system will not allow you to create any vendor in SAP S/4HANA system. Okay, any question on this? Okay, now you tell me, once the vendor is created, what are the transactions that you will be doing with the vendor? Why we created the vendor? What is the purpose of vendor in any system? In AP, when we say accounts payables, what are the different transactions that you are going to do?
We'll get the invoice or bill from the vendor and we'll book it.
Right. So we created the vendor because this vendor will keep on sending us the invoices. We will buy the goods and services from the vendors, right? So to book the vendor invoice. Okay, what else? We will get the invoice from the vendor. What else we need to do?
We'll pay that invoice at some point.
Right. So vendor payment. Once we receive the invoice from the vendor, we need to make the payment to the vendor. Sometimes we also need to book the debit memo to the vendor. So for example, if a vendor has sent us the invoice of 1000 INR, but we realized that vendor has charged us more. We agreed for 800 INR, but the vendor has sent us the invoice of 1000 INR. So what we will do for the extra 200, we can create a debit memo. Okay, so that is another transaction. Apart from this, there are some special transactions like advance payments. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes even if a vendor has not sent us the invoice, before sending the invoice, before sending the material, before providing any services, vendor will tell you that I need some advance to start this work. So that is nothing but advance payments. In SAP, advance payments are called as down payments. Okay, and then important thing is vendor clearing. So continuously you will keep on getting the invoices from the vendor, you will keep on making the payment to the vendor. Sometimes you will make the advance payment, sometimes you will do the debit memo. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that whatever invoices has been sent by the vendor, those are cleared with the proper payments. Okay, so that process is called as vendor clearing. This is what we need to understand from the AP point of view. Okay, same goes for AR also. In AR also, you will get instead of getting the invoice, you will create an invoice to the customer. Instead of making the payment to the vendor, you will receive the payment from the customer. Otherwise, the process will remain same. Okay, so let's start with AP and then we will go towards the AR transactions also. So what we will do is we will start with the vendor invoice. Now let's assume vendor has sent you the invoice. First, let's understand what would be the structure of the invoice. Okay, we don't have what here. No problem. So what is the structure of the invoice? When the vendor will send you the invoice, what would be the details in that invoice? Let's assume
it would have the rate, the quantity, the PO number.
Invoice number, Vikram.
yeah. So just example, let's assume you are taking the services from our side, right? You are taking the services from Gaurav Learning Solutions. Now definitely Gaurav Learning Solution will send you the invoice. In the invoice, what are the information which would be written? Definitely it will have invoice number. Okay,
Invoice
it will
date.
have, yes, it
Name
will
and
have
address.
Rates.
name and
Sorry.
address of you, name and address of the customer,
Right.
which means our customer. What else?
Then quantity, if you are ordering some material, then quantity will be there.
So first product or service, there will be the rate, there will be quantity, and then there will be full amount. And then if possible, there will be GST, right? What else?
Due date.
Payment
Due
terms.
date.
Yeah,
Due
payment
date.
terms. Terms equal to due date. Payment terms means when are you going to make the payment?
Yes.
Payment method,
Yes.
whether you are going to make the payment using
Partially or
payment
fully.
method. Sorry, payment method normally doesn't come in the invoice because payment method depends upon the person who is paying.
Payment terms.
Yeah, payment terms we already entered. Right, so these are some of the information which we normally capture in the which we get normally in the invoice. So let's assume we got all this information, we got a PDF file in which all these informations are available and we need to book this invoice now into the SAP system. So in order to do that, what you need to do is similar to general ledger accounting. If you go to accounting folder, you will be able to see financial accounting and accounts payables and accounts receivables. Right, so currently we are talking about accounts payables. Let me open accounts payables. You can see the flow is exactly same as even in general ledger accounting. You have document entry, document, account, master records, everything is same in accounts payable also. So when we are talking about creating an invoice, making the payment, everything comes under document entry. If you open the document entry, you can see the first activity itself is create a vendor invoice. If you double click on this, you can see again the screen is similar to general ledger accounting, similar to transaction FB50. Only difference is in general ledger accounting, here we were specifying two GLs, one for debit, second for credit. Okay, but now if it is AP invoice, what would be the accounting entry for AP invoice? Whenever you are going to book the invoice, what would be the accounting entry?
Purchase account debit to supplies means.
Yes.
Supplier account, right? Supplier account will be always credited. And that is the reason this is where you need to specify which supplier. Okay, so there is no need to provide any credit line item here because whatever vendor you will enter here, that vendor will become credit, and whatever other expense like purchase account, expense account, services account, whatever other GL account is getting debited, only that GL account you need to specify here. Right, so the vendor who is sending us the invoice, we created few vendors. If I do F4, let me see first whether my company code is correct. Yes, my company code is correct. So if I want to select the vendor, I received the invoice from which vendor? Let's see which are the different vendors available in our company code. So few vendors we created last week and one vendor we created now. This is a vendor that we created just now. So if I get an invoice from this vendor, I will double click on this. You can see it is asking us the invoice date. So let's say invoice date is 31st of March 2021. Okay, where are you going to enter the invoice number? There is nothing called as invoice number here. So this reference field is normally used for invoice number. This reference field is normally used for invoice number. So let's say this is invoice number 1. Okay, reference field in AP and AR is normally used for the invoice number. Okay, amount, what is the total amount including GST? Let's say, as of now, I'm not introducing GST. We will talk about GST and taxes later on. But let's assume the amount is 1000 INR. Okay, if you want to enter any text similar to general ledger accounting, I'm just entering the text here. And this is where you need to enter the corresponding GL account which needs to be debited. Right, so if I do F4, system will give me the list of all the GL accounts which are created. So out of this, I want the expense GL account. Let me take this one, refreshment expenses. Okay, debit amount, let me enter this same amount. And since this is an expense account, since this is a cost element, we need to provide the cost center. Okay, so in order to provide the cost center, we will go to the cost center field, F4, and system will display the list of all the cost centers available. Let's assume this cost is related to HR. Okay, that's it. Now, if I show you what would be the accounting impact, in order to see the accounting impact, first of all, there is some error. It is saying an entry is required in the assignment field of account, this GL account. What is this error? Yesterday, I think someone has raised this error. I don't think this error, now you need any explanation. You should be able to solve this error on your own. Can you
Yeah,
tell me what
yeah.
is here?
We have to be enter a text in the field. Assignment
Which
field.
field?
Assignment.
Assignment field. Yeah, so it is clearly saying an entry is required in assignment field of this GL account. Why it is saying that entry is required in this GL account? Because this GL account, when you create it, okay, let me show you the GL account. In each and every GL account, we provide the field status group. Based on this group, system determines which field is mandatory, optional, display, or suppressed. HDRO, right? If you remember. So if I go to general data and see the assignment number, it is showing as optional. Then why it is, okay, just 1 minute. If it is optional,
Actually,
yeah,
hi Vikram. Actually, the same issue is facing with me that day. That's why
okay,
actually I message you.
okay, just 1 minute. Assign field. An entry is required in assign field. It is not assignment. It is saying assign field of account. What is assign? Okay, just 1 minute. So normally if it is assignment, you will come here and you will see. Now which field it is saying as mandatory. Let's try. Let's go to additional account assignment. If there is any mandatory field here. No. Is it because of the posting key? If you remember, we have maintained the assignment field as mandatory field in the posting key. Let's go and see. So what is the posting key here? Debit the GL account is posting key 40, right?
Yes.
Let's go and see whether it is related to posting key. Normally the message should be for posting key in that case, but let's try. So FBKP posting keys. Let's go ahead for posting key 40. Okay, and maintain the field status. Yes, you can see from here, text and assignment field has become mandatory for posting key 40. That is the reason whenever you will be using posting key 40, this five fields, system will ask you as mandatory fields. Okay, so if you want to avoid this error, you can make this from optional from here, or otherwise you have to enter the value in those two fields. Okay, so now again, if I go back, so there are two ways in which the posting field status is controlled. One is through the field status group assigned to the GL master data, or through the posting key that we are using. right? Let me try to press enter. This error will not go till the time you restart this transaction. So I'm again going to FB60. I'm entering the vendor, invoice date, invoice number, amount, some text here, which GL account I want to debit, how much amount, and cost center. Press enter. Okay, now you can see system is not giving me any error message because that assignment field is now not mandatory field. Okay, and before you post, if you want to see what would be the accounting impact, you can click on the simulate button here. So you can see vendor, this is my vendor. Posting key 31 is credit the vendor. Which vendor? This vendor is getting credited. And this GL account is getting debited. Right? So this vendor is getting credited. Remember one thing. Posting key 31, this vendor is getting credited, but in the background, not only this vendor is getting credited, but the reconciliation account for this vendor is also getting credited. Let me show you what I mean. So one is simulate, second is simulate the general ledger. So document, simulate general ledger. Click on this. It will show you this GL account is getting credited. Okay, vendor number is 1 and starting with ending with 7. But the GL account which is getting credited is this GL account. Can you tell me why this GL account is getting credited? How system knows which GL account you want to credit?
This is the reconciliation account that we put in this setup.
Exactly. When we created the vendor, okay, if you remember, whenever you are going to create a vendor, again, if I take you to transaction BP, and if I open business partner number 200, right? You can see this is a reconciliation account that we have told the system. So we told the system that whenever we are going to post in this vendor, we want the system to make the posting in this GL. Okay, that is the purpose of reconciliation account. So what I can do is all the domestic vendors I can post into one single reconciliation account. All the foreign vendors I can post to another reconciliation account. All the intercompany vendors or employee vendors I can post to different reconciliation accounts. Right? So if you go to simulation, you can see your reconciliation account is getting credited and your GL account is getting debited. Expense GL account is getting debited. One more thing, can I directly post in this GL similar to this GL? Currently, I'm able to debit this GL. Can I directly credit or debit this GL?
No.
It is not possible. Why? Because it is a reconciliation account. Let me show you. If I go to transaction FB50, which I normally use for GL posting, if I enter any date, reference, document header text, okay, and here if I put the GL account as recon account, which is accounts payable domestic, credit, enter. See the message. Account, this one, in company code XYIN cannot be directly posted to. What does it mean? It means that this GL account I cannot use directly. This GL account will be only used for AP transaction when we provide the vendor. Okay, what will happen otherwise? If I am able to post like this, what issue it will create?
The
If I
GL
have
and
10,
the sub ledger will get out of sync, and so we'll have to work on reconciliation.
exactly. So what will happen is, if I have 10 vendors and the total balance of those vendors, if it is not matching with my GL account, then my system is not reconciled. Okay, let's say I have 10 vendors, each vendor is having 10 or 1000 as the balance, which means the total amount should be 10,000 in the GL account. But in addition to the 10 lines which are posted in the vendor, if I'm able to post independent line without specifying the vendor, then the balance in this GL account and the vendor accounts will not match. That is the reason, just remember, if you are entering this, if you have already told the system that this is my reconciliation account, if you already told the system that this is my recon account, which means in the control data, this indicator, if this is filled, this GL account will not be used for the manual posting. The values in this GL account will only come through vendor. Okay, clear on this? So this is how you should be able to post in AP. Okay, and if you are happy with the simulation, what you can do is you can click on post. When you post the document, it will again generate the accounting document. If you want to see this document, click on more document display. Okay, so you can see vendor account is credited and GL account is debited. And if you want to see the header information, click on this hat. You will see the document type. By default, the document type which is used for vendor invoice is document type KR. Okay, this is the invoice number. This is the invoice document date is nothing but the invoice date. So in GL document posting, you will not see the field called as document date. Sorry, invoice date. So invoice date and document date is one and the same thing. In GL posting, it will show you document date. In AP posting, it will show you invoice date. Let me show you once again. So if I go to transaction FB60 for vendor invoice, you can see it is not asking me any field. Let me open FB50 also and show the difference. Here you can see document date. In case of AP, it is showing invoice date. So document date and invoice date is one and the same thing. For general ledger account, it will show you document date. For vendor and customer, it will show you invoice date. Clear on this? Any questions?
Hi,
Is it
Vikram.
clear now? Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah, actually, I would like to ask you about the see. Actually, we have entered the date. Okay, as like mm, 31st of it means that date should be like March. Okay, but our posting period is open for the 12th. So is it accepted by the machine system?
No, Baban. If you see properly, just give me a minute. If you see properly, what is the posting date here?
Okay,
What is the posting date?
posting date is April. Okay,
Posting
it
date is
means
April,
current.
right? March
Yeah,
is the
it's
invoice
a
date
current.
because it is possible that you received the invoice, vendor has sent you the invoice 10 days before and you received now. So the
Yes.
invoice was created in March, but you received in April. Okay, so that is the reason my posting date is April, but my invoice date, which is physically appearing in my invoice, is 31st March. Okay,
Okay.
but yes, coming to your question, if I try to make the posting date as 31st of March, it will only accept if that period is open.
Yes, that I want
So
to clear.
yes, so system will only allow the posting date as 31st of March when the March period is open. If the March period is already closed, then you will not be able to make any posting in March. Okay, now can you tell me what is the total amount that I need to pay to this vendor? What is the total balance of this vendor?
1000.
1000. How can I check? What are the different reports in SAP where I can go and see how much I need to pay to this vendor? What is the total balance of this particular vendor? So for a report for AP, you will use transaction. What was the line level transaction for GL? If I want to see all the line items, what was the transaction code?
ABL 3N.
FBL3N.
Yes.
FBL3N was for GL. Same way, FBL1N.
1N
Instead
for a
of
vendor.
it will give you the list of vendor line items. It is asking vendor account, you want line items. So which is our vendor? If I do F4, it will give me the list of all the vendors again. I want to see the line items of this particular vendor in this company code, and I want to see only open items. Open items means for which I have still not made the payment. If I say cleared items, it will only show me those items for which all the payments are already made. And if I click on all items, it will give me the list of all the items irrespective of the payment is made or not made. Right? So first, if I try cleared, it will not show me anything because as of now, we have still not made any payment to this vendor. Right? If I show you open, this means it will show me those invoices for which the payment is still not made. So it should show me the invoice which we just now posted. You can see it is showing us the invoice of 1000. We have posted this invoice just now and we have still not made the payment. So the total balance of this particular vendor is 1000. Minus means credit. Vendor is always credit. Right? This is a line level report. Similarly, what was the report for balance in GL? Which report we use for GL balances? If you remember, we used FS10N.
Yes.
S stands for GL. So if I want to see the same report for vendor, if I remove S and enter K, FK10N will give me the balances of the vendor. If I want to know balances of this particular vendor, just execute. It will tell you what is the balance for this vendor. You can see the balance is 1000. Okay, and if you double click on this, it will show you which line items are relevant for this balances. So the total liability of this vendor is 1000 INR. Clear on this? Now let's assume, again, I am just posting another one document. Okay, so let's go to again the same transaction. What was the transaction code? You can go to accounting, financial accounting, accounts payable, document entry, and FB60. You can also use this older transaction F-43, which is multi-screen transaction. But normally we don't use this. So double click on FB60. I'm creating another invoice. Okay, invoice date this time let me take as 31st March 2021. This is invoice number 2. Now coming to the Bhavan's question, if I enter this date as 31st of March, system will only allow when 31st of March is still open, okay, which is open in our case. How can I check that? I can go to transaction
OB52.
OB52 for posting period. Okay, our posting period is XYIN, and you can see 12th period of 2020 to first period of 2021. So we are now in 2021 year. Starting from 1st of April, we entered into 2021. So as of now, even the 12th period is open. So now if I want to close this 12th period, I can say first period of 2021. Okay, this is for 2021 to first period of 2021, which means now only April month is open. All other periods are closed. So what will happen now if you go to your posting once again, okay, and try to post anything on 31st of March 2021, press enter, you can see posting period 12/2020 is not open. If this period is open, system will allow you to make the posting, but if this period is closed, then you will not be able to post anything in the previous month. Okay, and that is the reason. Let me change this date to 3rd of April and try to press enter. You can see now there is no error message. There is a warning message. It is just saying document date and posting date are in different fiscal years. Your document date is 2020 and your posting date is in 2021. So it is just a warning message. You can ignore, press enter. Okay, enter other information. So let's say this is 2000. This time I want to debit another GL account. This time let's say it is a rent expense, 2000. And obviously again this is an expense line item, so it will ask for the cost center.
Gaurav, Vikram, I have one question.
Yes, tell me.
If we want to open the last period, then is there any authorization required for it, or we can open it?
See, in SAP, each and every transaction has an authorization. If you have the authorization of posting the, see, currently also we are using transaction FB60. Even it may happen that one user is trying FB60 and he is getting error that he doesn't have the authorization. Same way, OB52 also can be controlled through authorization. So only that person who has the authorization, he will be only able to go and open the posting period.
Okay, so we have to request to him
Yes,
first.
it should be the authorized person. Otherwise, each and every person, if they have the access, they can go open, they can close. Sometimes they can open and forget to close. So that is a big risk. And that is the
Right.
reason this is normally given, the authorization is only given to the responsible person.
Okay, okay. Clear now. Thank you.
So again, I am entering and clicking on post. So it has generated another document. Can you tell me now what would be the total vendor balance? Initially, 1,000 and I posted another 2,000 now. What would be the total balance?
3,000.
3,000, right? 1,000 plus 2,000. Let's try to execute. You can see the balance is 3,000. If I double click, it is showing 1,000 was this invoice and 1,000 is this invoice. If you want to see the invoice number, which field we should use for the invoice number?
Reference field.
Reference, invoice reference. No, not this invoice reference. There is a reference field, document header reference. The reference key is different. This one. You can see the invoice number. So there are two invoices of this particular vendor, invoice 1 and invoice 2. Okay, and total balance is 3,000. Now let's assume this vendor has sent you the invoice 2 of 2,000. Okay, but then you realized that this vendor has charged you more. We agreed for 1,500, but the vendor has charged you 2,000. What you will do in this case? You will call the vendor. You will tell the vendor that why you charged more. We agreed for 1,500, and if the vendor says yes, it is my mistake. Can you send me the debit memo? Okay, and I will accept it. Which means instead of crediting, normally what we do, normally we credit the vendor, but this time we need to debit the vendor. That is the reason it is called as a debit memo. Okay, so for 500, we have to give the debit memo to our vendor. How to do that? So again, if you come to easy access, accounting, financial accounting, accounts payables, document entry, you can see there is a transaction called as credit memo. Now remember one thing, debit memo and credit memo. There is in SAP, see normally when you are debiting the vendor, it is called as debit memo. But in SAP, there is nothing called as debit memo. Even if you debit, the name is credit memo. Whenever you are giving the memo to the vendor, it is always going to be the credit memo. So don't get confused. Just remember in SAP, there is no debit memo. Debit memo is also called as vendor credit memo. So in order to debit the vendor, we will use transaction FB65. You can see the screens are exactly same. FB60 and FB65 are exactly same. You can see again it is asking vendor. Only difference is here, can you tell me what was the value earlier? It was debit because by default system was crediting the vendor and debiting the GL. This time, because you want to debit the vendor, that is the reason the corresponding GL account will get credited. Okay, from here also you can change. When you try FB60, by default system will give you R, that is invoice. But when you are giving the credit memo, FB65, by default system will pick this credit memo, G. Okay, so this vendor, this document date, against this invoice amount I want to debit 500 because vendor has charged you more. Okay, and my same expense account which was debited will become credit now because I'm going to get this amount back from vendor. So 500, and obviously I need to specify the cost center. Okay, try clicking on post. Ignore the warning messages, keep on pressing enter, and the document has been posted. So now can you tell me what would be the total balance?
2,500.
It would be 2,500. Why? Because there will be 3 line items: 1,000 invoice, 2,000 invoice, and 500 debit memo. Okay, let's try to execute. You can see the balance now is 2,500. There is a debit of 500 and there is a credit of 3,000. If you double click, it will show you 3 line items. 2 line items are credit, 1 line item is debit, which is 500. So overall balance is 2,500. Even the document type you can see. For credit memo, document type is KG. For normal vendor invoices, document type is KR. Right, so now overall balance is 2,500. This is how you can create a debit and credit memos in SAP. So it is very simple. Even you can use the same transaction which is used for invoice. Let me show you in that way. So if I go to transaction FB60, and from here if I change this to credit memo, see the difference. Just concentrate on this line. If I press enter the account number, invoice date. See, this has become credit. As soon as you make this credit memo, it will become credit. If you make this as debit memo or invoice, enter, enter. Reference is mandatory. Let me enter the reference. This has become debit. Right, so from here itself you can change. You can tell the system whether you want to credit the vendor or you want to debit the vendor. So when you say invoice, system will credit the vendor. When you say credit memo, system will debit the vendor. Clear on this? Any question? Okay, so it is showing you 3 lines. Now let's try to make the payment. Let's assume on the date on which we want to make the payment. Before that, let me show you this invoice. So this was the invoice that we got from the vendor. You can see there is a payment term. As of now, we have not entered anything. That is the reason system doesn't know the due date as of now. Normally, if I want to tell the system that this invoice is due on a particular date, I have to enter the payment terms. So that part I'll explain you later on. But as of now, let's assume we want to make the payment of the remaining amount to the vendor. Okay, so we want to pay this 2,500 to this vendor so that all the line items are cleared. Currently, all the line items are red. This means they are open. Okay, they are still not paid. They are not cleared with each other. These are 3 independent lines. They are still not cleared with each other. They are not paid to the vendor. So now, if you want to make the payment to the vendor, in order to make the payment, again, you will go to accounting, financial accounting, accounts payable, document entry, and here you will be able to see outgoing payment, the last one, outgoing payment. In SAP, we call payments as outgoing or incoming. So whenever you are making the payment to the external vendor, it is outgoing payment. Whenever you are receiving the payment from your customers, it is incoming payment. Okay, let's go to the outgoing payment, and we will use this transaction F-53 to make the payment to the vendor. Okay, double click on F-53. Again, enter the document date. Let's say my document date is 03/04/2021. Document type for making the payment to the vendor is KZ. Okay, these things you will remember when you do more and more practice. You will become confident that what are the different document types. So for vendor invoice, document type is KR. For credit memo, document type is KG. And for payment, document type is KZ. Okay, company code, posting date, in which currency you are making the payment. Now this is where you need to tell the system from which bank account you are making the payment. So we already have some bank accounts created. If I press, you can see we created HSBC Bank, we created Citibank, we created ICICI Bank. So for example, if I want to make the payment from the Citibank, how much amount I want to pay? If I want to make the full payment, what is the total amount which is due?
2,500.
2,500.
Right? If there are any bank charges, you have to enter here. And since this is a bank account, it will also ask you for value date. Right? So again, my value date is 03/04/2021. Enter. This is where you need to tell the system to which vendor you want to pay. Okay, using this transaction, you will be able to make the payment to a particular vendor. So in account, I need to select the vendor to whom I want to pay. I want to pay to this vendor. Okay, just press enter. Now you are getting some error. An entry XYIN is missing in table T043G. This is a configuration error. Before you make any payment to the vendor, you have to perform some configuration. This is again related to tolerance. We already understood what is document tolerance, right? If you remember the tolerance we created for which user is able to. Avinash, please mute yourself. I muted you from my side. Please keep your mic muted, otherwise it will creating the confusion. Okay, so there is a configuration missing due to which system is not able to go ahead. Okay, this is related to the tolerance once again. If you remember, we have created the document tolerance in which we told the system which user is allowed to post how much value. Same way for vendor also, to which vendor how much cash discount we can give, to which vendor how much payment differences we can allow, that is controlled through the tolerances. It is a simple configuration. Let me show you how. So I am doing /o spro img. I'm going to financial accounting, and currently we are in accounts receivables and accounts payables. In this one, we are doing the business transactions, and we are in outgoing payments. Okay, within outgoing payments, we will go to manual outgoing payments, and this is where you have the tolerances. Define the tolerances. So similar to general ledger, similar to document tolerances, what we will do here is we will create one tolerance group with blank and company code. So what I can do is I can just copy this, and our company code is XYIN. Enter. I'll keep this blank. If you remember, one tolerance group with blank is mandatory. Once this is done, now I hope we will get rid of that error. So in order to make the payment, again I'll go to post outgoing payment and press enter. You can see now that error is gone. Okay, let me go back. You can see you will be able to click on this process open items. It will show you all the open items which are due for this vendor. So there are 2 invoices and 1 credit memo. Overall balance you can see is 2,500. If you are making the payment of 2,500, there will be 0 amount which will be pending, will remain open. By default, system will show you all these lines as blue. But if you don't want to pay, let's assume I don't want to pay this double 2000. You have to double click on it. Okay, you have to click here. You can see now it is turned to black, and you can see it is showing the balance of 2000. So it is up to you which invoices you want to pay. Here, list will show you each and every invoice which is open. You have to decide which invoices you want to pay. You have to decide which invoices you don't want to pay. So either you can do it one by one, or what you can do is you can select all. There is a button to select all, and there is a button to activate all, deactivate all, and activate all. Activate means everything will turn to blue. Deactivate means everything will turn to black. So activate, which means I want to make the payment of all the documents at once, 2500. If this balance is zero, then only system will allow you to save this, post this. If there is balance is not zero, then system will show you to change the amount which you want to pay. Okay, let's click on post. Now you can see the payment document has been posted. So what would be the balance now? What should be the total balance?
0.
Balance will be 0.
Balance would be 0 because we already made the payment of 2500. Let's try to execute. You can see balance is 0. Debit of 3000, credit of 3000, overall balance 0. Okay, total transactions that we have done is 2500, but this is not a balance. Balance is 0. If I double click on this, it will show me all the 4 line items. 2 line items related to invoice, 1 line item related to credit memo, and 1 line item related to payment, and you can see everything is turned to green. This means all these are cleared with each other. Ultimately, the balance is 0. So if I go to my line level report,
Vikram,
yes.
Can you please explain the credit memo again, and once transaction for that credit memo, and in which scenarios we do the credit memo?
Okay, just 1 minute. Let me just complete this and then I'll come to the credit memo part. So this is a vendor line item display report. As I told you, all the lines are cleared now. So if I select this open item, how many lines it will show?
0.
0, right? Because all the line items are cleared. You can see no items selected. If I select cleared, it will show me all the 4 line items because those are cleared. Right? That is the purpose of this cleared and open item. And if you click on all, it will show you all, irrespective of whether it is open or closed. So all the line items are cleared as of now. Okay, now let's come into the question. See, what is credit memo? Have you came across this term? Let me give you the example. This term is very common nowadays. When you pay the extra amount to some online vendor, or to even if you go to malls, you purchase something but then you wanted to return it. Okay, so some of the mall shops, they will not give you the money back, they will give you the credit memo. What is the purpose of credit memo? Credit memo means we will not give you the cash, but you can make the use of credit memo whenever you make your next purchase. Same way, the example that I gave you, in the industry there are regular transactions between vendors and customers, right? Let's assume I am a customer and I got an invoice from the vendor. Let's take the same example that I took. So vendor has sent me the invoice of 2000. The accountant was not knowing what has been agreed. So accountant simply posted a document of 2000. But later on, when this invoice went to the approver for payment, approver has negotiated with the vendor and they agreed on 1500. So what will happen now? How you will tell the system that I don't need to pay this 500 to the vendor? You have to tell the system that vendor has given me the credit of 500, which I don't need to pay. And that is the reason you have to create a credit memo in the system. So instead of crediting the vendor, when you post the credit memo, system will debit the vendor, which means that much amount you need to pay less to the vendor. Is it clear now, Aarti?
No.
So what is the question? Where are you getting confused?
Hmm. Actually, see, when we sometimes, if in the real-time scenario, if the purchase will be inventory purchase, and the goods also sent to us, and we will return the goods. In that time, what will happen exactly?
In that time also you will create a credit memo. So let's assume,
Okay.
okay, let's take example in the goods point of view. Currently, whatever we discussed without goods, it was related to service. Now let's assume
Mm-hmm.
you bought the goods from the vendor, let's say 10 quantity. Okay.
Yeah.
Vendor has sent you the invoice, 100 rupees
Yeah.
each. So total value of the invoice is 1000,
Okay.
right? Now you already booked
Mm.
this liability in your system. 1000 liability has already been booked in the system. Now,
Yeah.
when this material you are trying to use, you found out that out of 10, 2 are defective.
Yeah. So 1 minute,
What you
Vikram, means FB60 already posted to our system for the 10 line item, 10 quantity, right?
no, FB60 has nothing to do with the quantity. FB60 is the invoice that you received from the vendor. In the invoice from the vendor, the amount is maintained. It is not showing you the quantity. See, remember one thing.
Okay.
What we are doing currently, FB60 is not used when you have goods.
Yeah, yeah.
FB60 is only
We
used when you
use the Miro in the case in the case of
exactly
goods purchase. So whatever invoice has been sent for the 10 quantities, we already posted Miro in our system. So invoice is available for the 10 quantity, right?
right,
And after that we receive the goods, and three are damaged from them, and we return to the vendor back, correct?
right,
And that time we will post credit memo to our system, and we will send that hard copy credit memo, hard copy to vendor. Am I correct?
exactly, right,
Okay, okay.
yes.
Okay, so after that what will happen?
After that, in your books, what it is showing, initially you book the liability of 10 quantity. Now you return 3. The liability is only for 7.
Okay, okay,
So when you are making the payment to the vendor, you will not make the payment of all the 10 quantity. You will make the payment of only 7 quantity.
okay,
The same example
okay,
we have seen. Make the posting of 2000. Then we agreed with the vendor that it should be 1500. That is the reason we posted a debit memo of 500. And ultimately, we made the payment of 1500.
okay. Can we
Right?
see one more transaction, please?
Yeah. So let's do one more thing. So what I'll do is again I'll create an invoice. Let's say I received the invoice from the vendor. Invoice number 3. Okay, again the amount, yeah, maybe let's keep it round figure. So 1000. Okay, this is clear. We received an invoice from the vendor and we booked in the system of 1000 INR.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, yeah, now when this invoice is up to the management to approve for the payment, they realize that why are you paying 1000 to this vendor? He normally charges 800 for this service. Okay, so you contacted the vendor, you told the vendor that why are you charging more? We agreed for 800 and vendor also agreed. He said no problem, send me the credit memo and make the payment of 800. Right?
Our
So in
management will see when our management will verify the transaction for the 800 quantity, he will be knowing we have a debit memo in our system, right?
yes, exactly. No, so again the question is management Which management? See, first of all, as of now, booked 1000.
Sorry, the finance department, who is going to pay the amount?
The finance department is making the payment, but before the payment is made, there is a purchase department in between who will verify that yes, this is the correct payment that you are making to the vendor, because purchasing department goes into the negotiations with the vendor, right?
Okay, so before that, our responsibility is we should have created the debit memo in the system. Then only they will get to know, right?
Yeah. Again, let
So
me
as soon
clarify.
as we are returning the goods, we should have created the debit memo in the system. Otherwise, I think they will not get to know.
No. The sequence, it depends. Let me again give you the simple example.
Mm-hmm.
See, vendor has sent you the material, 10 quantity, 1000 each. Here,
Okay.
total value 10,000. Who will receive this material? Stores person, right? Stores person has received the material, so he has booked the stock of 10,000. Clear till now?
Yeah.
Next is vendor will send the invoice. Invoice is sent to whom? To the finance department, right? So finance department has booked the liability of 10,000. Clear till now? Clear or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this material that you purchase from the vendor is sent to the manufacturing department to manufacture, to
Okay.
convert that raw material into finished product. Now this quality department realized that out of 10 quantity, 2 quantity are there are some manufacturing defects or they are defective, right? So
Okay.
manufacturing department has performed the quality check and they came to know that out of 10, 2 quantity are defective. They will send this 2 quantity back to stores, right?
Okay.
What stores will do? Stores will go to the purchasing department because stores directly don't speak to vendor. Purchasing department is one which speaks to the vendor. So stores department will go to purchasing department and complain that two material are defective. Clear?
Yeah.
Now purchasing department will give the call to the vendor that out of the 10 quantity that you sent, 2 are defective. And vendor will say, oh, sorry for that. Can you do one thing? Can you return that material along with the credit memo and make the payment of only 8 items?
Okay.
So the stores department will send the material back. Okay, and immediately when this is done, immediately the system will also generate the credit memo because you are sending the material back, so you need to pay less to the vendor.
Okay.
Is it clear now?
So, yeah. So who will be raising the credit memo? FI people, right? FI team.
It totally depends. See, there is no right or wrong answer here. So normally these postings are normally done by finance only. Raising the invoices,
Okay.
raising the credit memo, these are only done by finance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Vikram.
Yes.
Yes, Vikram, I'm having a doubt. So, in case this payment is done already, if if we done 10,000 rupees already payment, and after that we got to know two products are defected, then the
Right.
transaction should be
No, in that case also what will happen is you will still go with the credit memo. Only thing is you will not be able to adjust that amount with the uh, current invoice. Whenever you will get the next invoice from the vendor, at that time you will be able to clear it.
okay. Okay, got it.
Otherwise, in
But we
case of
need to pass this transaction, right? Anyhow,
you have to
there is no
pass
any
no,
different transaction.
no different transaction. Same transaction will be. You are simply saying the system that I need to collect this much of this vendor. That's it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Just give me a minute. Yeah. So any question? Now you know how to create an invoice, how to post the credit memo, and how to make the final payment to the vendor. So let's see one cycle again in detail.
Sorry,
So now,
one more question here.
yes.
Where we enter payment terms here, like net 30, net 60 in this?
Yes, good question. Let me show you. So what I'll do is I'll create one more invoice so that I can show you the payment term also. So this is my vendor, invoice date, invoice number, okay, whatever is the amount, some description, test. So as of now, we are not discussing about tax, but otherwise later on when the taxation will come, this is where we'll be able to tell the system which tax is applicable, how much percentage and all, based on which system will automatically calculate the tax. But as of now, no need to worry about that. We'll talk about that in later. So here I will enter the GL account, which I want to debit with this much amount. And then we have the cost center here. Okay, now in addition to this, there are a lot of other fields here. You can see taxation related, as I told you. Apart from that, GST partner, again related to GST, place of supply, these are all GST related. But you can see there are other tabs also. So if I go to the payment tab, this is where in the payment tab, you have to enter the payment term. Okay, now there are a lot of payment terms which are already provided by SAP. If you want to use them, you can use it. But if you want to create your own payment terms, I'll show you how to create your own payment terms also. So you can see first one is 0001, which means payable immediately. Okay, no credit days, immediately you need to pay. Second is 0002, within 30 days due date, which means if you are making the payment within 30 days, you have to pay the full amount. But if you are making the payment within 14 days, vendor will give you 2% cash discount. Okay, so this is to promote the fastest payment. So some of the vendors, they will say, I can give you 30 days credit, but if you make the payment within 40 days, then I'll give you 2% cash discount. Okay, so if I select this, what will happen? System will automatically give you 2% discount if you make the payment within 14 days of the invoice date. Right, so this is where you will be able to enter the payment term. If you press enter, system will automatically take the corresponding things. 14 days, within 14 days 2% off, within 30 days nothing off. Right, this is where you can enter the payment method also. So while making the invoice, you can tell the system that how are you going to make the payment to this vendor. So payment method can be check, can be bank transfer, can be any other NEFT, RTGS. There are a lot of options which you can set up. Okay, so we will talk about this payment method setup in automatic payment program. As of now, we are making the manual payment. Even you can block the payment. Okay, so for example, I'm booking this invoice, but I know the quality or the price which is charged by the vendor is not what we agreed. And that is the reason I want this invoice to go for the approval before the payment is made. And that is the reason I can do the payment block. So you can see block for payment. Okay, you can, if I select this, then system will not allow me to make the payment to this vendor. Let me show you how. So payment block A, and I'm clicking on post. Mamta, your question is answered now. When the
Yeah,
payment
I got it. Yes.
is entered in payment tab.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now this particular invoice, when I posted this invoice, I told the system that this invoice is blocked for payment. Okay, which means if I double click on this vendor line item, you can see payment block A, which means system should not allow me to make the payment to this vendor, for this particular invoice. So now if I try to make the payment, I'll go to transaction F-53. Okay, document date, I will enter the same date. This is a bank account from where I want to make the payment. Amount, let's say I want to make the payment of 1000. Value date is mandatory field, and the vendor account to whom I want to make the payment. I'll click on process open items. It will give me the list of all the items which are open. You can see that as of now, there are two invoices which are open. Okay, and since I am making the payment before 14 days, system is allowing me 2% discount, which is 20 rupees. Okay, and I need to pay 980. Okay, and let me say to the system that I don't want to use this cash discount. Just give me. Okay, so I want to make the payment of full. Let me press enter. So although system is calculating the cash discount, but I told the system as of now not to confuse us with cash discount. And now I want to tell the system that I only want to make the payment of this invoice, not this invoice. So I'll double click on this. Only this is selected. So 1000, 1000. I'm making the payment of 1000. Okay, and let's try to make the posting. You can see system has allowed you to make the posting. Why? Because in manual payment, when you are making the payment manually, system doesn't worries whether the payment is blocked or not. Because when you are making the manual payment, you are checking vendor by vendor, line by line, and you are telling the system that I want to make the payment to this vendor. This payment block indicator will only work in case of automatic payment. Okay, so just remember that we will see what is automatic payment in the coming sessions, but the payment block indicator doesn't stops you to make the payment to the vendor. It only stops when the payment is done automatically. When you're doing the manual payment, system will not stop you and it will allow you to make the payment as for the other invoices. Clear on this? Any questions? Again, let me go and see if there are any other important fields which I need to explain you. So FB60 once again, vendor, this is my invoice date, reference is my invoice number, amount, okay, so we discussed the payment tab. In the payment tab, you can see payment method, payment term. If you go to the details, here again you can enter the header text, you can enter the assignment field. Okay, there are some additional fields. These are optional fields if you want to enter. In the tax, system will perform the tax calculation. If you enter the tax code, then the system will be able to perform the tax calculations also. In the notes, again you can enter whatever you want. It is a free text. If you want to provide some additional information to be kept in the system. Okay, and then you already know in the line items what are the different fields. So this is how you create a invoice when you receive the invoice from the vendor. Okay, transaction code HB60. Now same thing if I want to show you from the AR point of view, so that we are clear with AP and AR on the same level. So same thing, instead of FB60, the only difference is instead of accounts payable, I will now go to accounts receivable, document entry, and you can see FB70. So FB50 for GL posting, FB60 for AP posting, FB70 for AR posting. Again, if you open the screen is very much similar. Here instead of vendor, system is asking you which customer. So customer will get debited, whatever customer you enter here, and the line items will get credited. And here you will enter the revenue account, right? When you are selling something, your revenue is getting credited and your customer account is getting debited. Let's see if we created any customer last time. I think we got some error, right? Let's try to create one customer and see. I'll go to transaction BP. I want to create a new organization. Domestic is fine. And for customer, which role I should use? FLCU00, right? Title, let me enter this title. This is test customer for XYIN. Just entering the mandatory fields. Okay, and since I know this is the external number, so I'm providing the external number. I'm going to company code tab for company code XYIN. I will try to provide the reconciliation account. So I created three: AR domestic, AR foreign, and AR intercompany. Let me select AR domestic and try to save. Okay, so business partner has been created. The customer account has been created. This is my customer number. This is my business partner number. Okay, so using this customer number, I can create an invoice. So this time, this is my customer. He got some services from me. Okay, and for those services, I am going to create an invoice. I'll go to transaction FB70. If I do F4,
Question here.
yes.
So like for customer also same like us, they are also going to have different branches, right? Like foreign branches, like domestic branches. So the details we're adding here, like they're going to provide it by client or how we are going to decide that?
No, sorry, I'm not getting you. Can you come again?
No, you added one customer here, right? Like examples,
Yes.
branch they're
Domestic
having. Yeah. Like, but they are going to have different branches and their head office somewhere in Hyderabad. So we are
So
entering
in
these
that,
details based on client requirement or how we are based on from where we are getting invoice.
okay. See, first of all, each and every customer, if you have a customer which has multiple branches, each and every branch has to be created as customer, separate customer.
Oh, so
Okay, and then
whatever branch we are dealing, so we are going to add that branch as customer.
yes. So if a same customer, let's say Reliance, is a customer in Bangalore and in Hyderabad, there are two separate entities. Then Reliance Bangalore is your separate customer and Reliance Hyderabad is your separate customer. Okay, and then there is one concept in SAP called as head office branch concept, where irrespective of you book the invoice in whichever branch, your head office will make the payment. That we will understand separately. As of now, what I am explaining, domestic, foreign, these are the categories, whether this customer is a domestic customer or foreign customer or intercompany customer. But head office and branch concept we will discuss in detail later on.
Okay, got it.
So let's assume, as of now, let's assume this is my single customer without any branches, without any head office. Okay, and if I just press enter, so this is our customer that we created. Again, you can see invoice date. So this is the invoice date on which you are sending this invoice to your vendor. Let's say 03/04/2021. Again, invoice number, reference is invoice number field. Whatever amount you want to charge to your customer, you can see each and everything is same. Only difference is this is for customer, previously it was for vendor. Here, instead of booking the expenses, you will book the revenue because you are selling this to customer, right? So for revenue, I hope we created a GL account. If not, we have to create a separate GL account for revenue. We are not created. So what we will do is we will create one GL account using transaction FS00 new. So revenue are starting with 30000000. We are using 8 digits, right? So for revenue, what should be the GL account type?
Balance sheet.
Sorry,
Primary
It's a
cost,
balance.
no?
Primary, yeah.
primary cost. Account group, we already created revenues. Profit and loss account type, for profit and loss accounts, we have to provide this. So this is my revenue. Again, I can create multiple revenue accounts: domestic revenue, foreign revenue, intercompany revenue. Okay, let's say this is my domestic revenue. So this is only for those customers who are domestic. Okay, control data, nothing is important here. Create bank interest. For revenue accounts, there is a separate field status group, G029, or in this case YB029. You can see this is for revenue accounts, YB29. Okay, and click on save. So cost element category, yes, because it is a profit and loss account, we have to specify the cost element category also in control data. Okay, and in cost element category, previously till now we used 0, 1 for cost. For revenue it is going to be 11. Okay, remember 11 is for revenues in cost element category. Click on save, and now you will be able to post the transaction. So enter customer invoice. Okay, so here if I do F4, now system should show me the revenue account, domestic revenue, the one that we have created just now, whatever amount you want to enter. And this is a cost element. Is cost center mandatory for revenue account also? Do we need a cost center for revenue account?
No, we need a profit center probably.
We need the profit center, right? Cost center is for cost. This is not our cost, this is revenue. So for revenue, we can directly enter the profit center. There is no need to specify the cost center. Okay, let's say this is my profit center and click on post. Enter a true account assignment object with revenue. Now this is because system is expecting a cost center here, although we do not want to enter the cost center. So if you are getting this error, let's see. Yeah, we have to make this change to warning. See, currently by default system is giving this as a error message, but this is wrong because normally for revenue GL accounts we don't want to enter the cost center. Okay, but system is not allowing us to go without entering the cost center because this is currently the error message. So as of now, let me enter this profit center, remove the profit center and enter the cost center, but later on maybe in the next session I'll tell you why I have entered this and how to get rid of this error. There is another error, cost center is blocked against revenue posting. Normally cost center will not allow you to be used in the revenue GL. So what you need to do is go to transaction KS02, which is change cost center, and use the cost center. This is the cost center that we are using, and this is where you will be able to tell the system whether the revenue postings are allowed. Currently revenues are locked, so as of now I'm just saying revenues are allowed, say, which means now system will allow me to use this particular cost center for revenue posting also. Just give me a minute. No, there is something other message. So what we need to do is, what it is saying is, if you are getting this error and it is an error message, it is not allowing you to go ahead, what we can do is we can change this message to the warning message. Okay, how? Click on view details, note down this message number KI166. Go to transaction OBA5, which is a message control. Okay, what was the error number? KI155, right? So KI, here you need to enter
KI
the
166, no?
KI166, okay. So application area KI, right? And then the message is, so new entry, what was the message? You are saying 166. Yes, this one. Enter the true account assignment object. And here what I will tell the system is make it as a warning message. By default, it is an error message. I am telling the system to make it as a warning message and save. This is a customizing. This is the configuration one time. Okay, you will not get this error now because I have already made at the client level. So again,
Vikram, which T code you have used for this warning message? Okay,
OBA5.
A5. Okay,
OBA5.
OBA5.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is called as message control. We can make some fields, some messages as error or warnings from here. So let me remove this. Even I think profit center is okay, but cost center should be removed. Normally we don't enter the cost centers in the revenue GL accounts. Where is profit center? I think it is already in there. Yeah. Enter. Yes. Now you can see it has turned to warning. It will not stop you. If you press enter, it will go away. Okay, so the document has been posted. So this is how we can create an invoice for the customer. So now customer invoice has been created, which means customer will show balance. Can you tell me the T code for the report? Similar to FS10N, FK10N, what is the transaction code for customer balances? So F10N
FD10N.
is
Okay.
only difference is instead of S and K, it would be D. FD10N. Right? Press enter. No, you have to N FD10N. So which customer? Select the customer from the list. We want to see the balance of this particular customer. How much it should show? What should be the balance of this customer?
1,000, right? Only one transaction.
Only one
1000.
transaction. One, right? Debit or credit?
It's a debit.
Debit, right? Customer is always debit. Vendor is always credit. So when you receive the invoice from the vendor, you have to credit the vendor. When you raise the invoice to the customer, customer will be debited. So there is a debit balance of 1,000. Is it cleared or open?
It's
Open.
open.
It's open, right? If it is cleared, then the balance will be zero. It is open because we have still not received the payment. Customer has not paid for this particular line item. Now let's assume this customer came to you and said, why you are charging 1,000? We agreed for 800. What you will do in that case? If you agree that yes, I
Credit.
charged more,
Credit
again you
memo.
will charge credit memo for 200. So you will credit the customer. When you invoice the customer, you debit the customer. When you give the credit memo, you credit the customer. The same way as we have seen in case of AP, here also you have a credit memo, FB75. So double click which customer, even you can change it from here also, as we discussed earlier. Right? You can go to the credit memo from here itself. So what date, against which invoice number, how much amount. Okay, amount I want to change to 200 because I want to create a debit memo, credit memo of 200. Revenue account 200, and I'll enter the profit center. Okay, and try to post it. Ignore the warning message by pressing enter, another enter, and the document has been posted. What would be the balance now?
800.
800, right? 1000 minus 200. So 1000 debit, 200 credit, overall balance 800. Double click, it will show you both the lines are open. And in order to close these both lines, we have to receive the amount. We have to ask the customer to pay us 800. And when this customer pays this 800, we will receive the incoming payment. So for receiving the incoming payment, again in document entry, you should be able to see incoming payment transaction F-28. Okay, again document date 03/04/2021. This document date is normally, in case of payment, this is normally the check date. if you are making the payment by check, bank transfer date if the payment is done by bank transfer. Okay, so from which bank account or in which bank account you are receiving the payment. I am receiving the payment in this particular bank account. How much? I am receiving 800. Value date again 03/04/2021. Okay, if you enter text assignment, if you want, you can enter. From which customer you are getting it? So F4, I'm getting the payment from this customer. Okay, just click on process open items and it will show you there are two line items which are open. Invoice of 1000 and credit memo of 200. Overall balance 800. Okay, and once you make the posting, system will generate the payment document. And now can you tell me what would be the balance? What would
0.
be the total balance? 0, because total amount has been paid. So balance 0, debit of 1000, credit of 1000. If I double click, it will show me three lines. One for invoice, second for credit memo, and last one for payment. And all these three lines are cleared.
Vikram, can you just explain the last column in the FS FD tenant?
It is the total sales and purchase. What is the total sales and purchase from this customer?
So, if any credit memo is there, it will minus that amount and the actual value it will show, right? Actual sales and purchase.
Yes, exactly. It will show you the exact actual amount. So we purchased for 1000, but later on we got a credit memo, so it became 800. Again, if you make a purchase of 1000, it will become 1800. So accordingly, sales and purchase will get updated. It is how much total business you have done with this customer.
Okay. So if we again sell some 2000 values amount and we return 500 from that, so it will come in the next line, right? It will show one transactions only, na?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Okay, you can see balances similar to GL account. Balances are also appearing month-wise. Okay, so you are currently seeing the balances of 2021. In 2021, in the first period, we have this much debit, we have this much credit. Okay, so I think it was too much for today. There are a lot of things which you need to practice on your own. So tomorrow what we will do is, I will show you the FBL file and I'll explain you some things in detail, some columns in detail. Okay, there are more number of columns here, so we will talk about this also in detail. Okay, any questions? Please practice this today, whatever you have learned. Create one customer, one vendor, and try to make those postings, credit memos, payments, so that when we are discussing the advanced topics tomorrow, you are all clear with whatever we discussed today.
Vikram, I did not find any credentials mail in my mailbox. Even I did not started any configuration.
Can you just mail, because the background team is looking into it, just send a mail that you have not received.
So which ID I should send the mail?
Same info@Gaurav Consulting.
Sir, quick question.
Okay.
Sir, quick question. How is the currency maintained for the vendors? Domestic vendor group, can we assign a currency INR, or where is that field maintained?
Yes, so that things you can maintain in the master data. Let me show you. So if you want that this particular vendor or a particular customer, let me show you. So our vendor was 200, and if I show you FLVN00 company code data. As of now, we have not entered any currency. Account management should be able to see here. I think it will come under purchase level. In the purchase order, the system can automatically determine the currency. So purchasing order currency. This is where from the purchasing side, okay, not from the FI side. In FI side, you can directly change the currency when you are posting the transaction. So if I go to transaction FB60, okay, this is where you can change the currency. If you want the transaction to be happening in some other currency, not in INR, by default, it will show you the company code currency. But if you want to make some other currency transaction, you have to change it here. I will show you some transactions in foreign currency tomorrow.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Hi Vikram. Actually, I want to clear from my side.
Yeah.
When we log in the SAP, okay. So actually, how you can get the have you added the favorite, okay, as a SAP menu or something. So it's not looking from my side. Okay, it's showing some different options here in the user
No,
menu for user file.
yeah, I told you what you need to do is click on this SAP menu. Then you'll be able to see as it is what I'm able to see. Currently, you are in user menu. That is the reason it is showing something else. Click on this SAP
Yes.
menu and you'll be able to see the by
Yeah.
default.
Can you show me how it is?
Just click on this SAP menu in
Okay.
SAP.
Okay. Okay. Try. Yes, I am getting it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay then. Thank you all. See you tomorrow, same time and
Okay.
same link.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining the call. Bye.
Thank you, Vikram.